One day, the person you would have done anything for simply stopped choosing you. The messages became shorter, the effort disappeared. The love you kept fighting for started slipping through your fingers no matter how hard you tried to hold on. And the painful part is not that they left. The painful part is that you kept chasing someone who was already walking away. But what if Allah was protecting you the entire time? What if the door you're desperately trying to reopen is the very door Allah, in His mercy, decided to close? Stay until the end, because the final lesson could change the way you see love, heartbreak, and relationships forever. And before we begin, type "I trust Allah's plan" in the comments below. Let's fill the comments with believers who are choosing faith over fear and trust over attachment. Bismillah. 1. When love turns into chasing, something has gone wrong. My beloved brother and sister, love is supposed to bring peace to the heart, not constant anxiety. Yet many people find themselves trapped in relationships where they are doing all the chasing. They are always the first to call, the first to apologize, the first to fix problems, and the first to make sacrifices. Day after day, they keep pouring effort into someone who keeps pulling away. At first, it feels like love. You tell yourself that relationships require patience and hard work. But there comes a point when what you call love becomes something else. Instead of feeling valued, you feel exhausted. Instead of feeling secure, you feel worried. Instead of feeling appreciated, you feel ignored. That is often the moment when Allah is showing you that something is not right. Allah did not create relationships to be a one-sided struggle. He created them to be built upon affection, mercy, and mutual effort. The Quran says, "And among His signs is that He created for you spouses from among yourselves that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy." Quran 30:21. Notice that Allah mentions tranquility, affection, and mercy. He does not mention begging for attention, constantly proving your worth, or living in fear of being abandoned. When a relationship forces you to sacrifice your peace every single day, it is time to reflect on whether you are holding on to something Allah may be asking you to release. Many people spend years trying to convince someone to love them. They think one more conversation, one more sacrifice, or one more chance will finally change everything. But real love cannot be forced. Respect cannot be forced. Commitment cannot be forced. The harder you try to force what is not meant to be, the more pain you create for yourself. One of the greatest mistakes people make is attaching their value to another person's feelings. They begin believing that if someone leaves, it means they are not good enough. If someone loses interest, it means they are not worthy of love. But your value does not come from a relationship. Your value comes from Allah, the one who created you and knows your worth better than anyone else. Sometimes the person you are desperately trying to keep is the very person Allah is trying to remove from your life. Not because Allah wants to hurt you, but because He wants to protect you. What feels like a painful loss today may later become one of the greatest blessings Allah ever gave you. The moment love turns into chasing, stop and ask yourself an important question. Am I fighting for a healthy relationship, or am I trying to force a door that Allah is slowly closing? Because understanding that difference can save your heart from years of unnecessary pain. 2. Why some relationships end even after so much dua. My beloved brother and sister, one of the hardest experiences a person can face is watching a relationship fall apart after making countless du'as for it to succeed. You prayed during the night, you asked Allah after every salah, you cried in sujood, you begged Allah to fix what was broken, soften the other person's heart, and bring the two of you closer together. Yet despite all of those prayers, the relationship still ended or continued moving in a painful direction. This is the moment where many people become confused. They begin asking questions that weigh heavily on the heart. If I made so much dua, why did Allah not give me what I wanted? If this relationship was so important to me, why did Allah allow it to slip away? Did Allah not hear my prayers? These questions are natural, but they come from seeing only a small part of the picture. while Allah sees the entire picture. Allah says in the Quran, "But perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you, and Allah knows, while you know not." Quran 2 Sa'd 3:16. This verse speaks directly to the human heart. There are things we desperately want because they look perfect from our limited perspective. We imagine a future with a certain person. We build dreams around them. We convince ourselves that happiness can only come through that relationship. But Allah sees what we cannot see. He sees the conversations that have not happened yet. He sees the disappointments that have not arrived yet. He sees the wounds that may come years later if that door remains open. Many people assume that when Allah does not answer a dua exactly as requested, it means the dua was rejected. But that is not how a believer should think. Sometimes Allah answers by giving, sometimes He answers by delaying, and sometimes He answers by protecting. The problem is that protection rarely feels like protection in the moment. It often feels like heartbreak. Think about how many people once cried over a relationship they thought they could never live without. They believed their happiness depended on that one person. Yet years later, they looked back and thanked Allah for closing that door. What they once saw as a loss became one of the greatest blessings of their lives. If Allah had given them exactly what they wanted, they might have ended up carrying pain far greater than the temporary sadness they experienced. This does not mean every difficult relationship should be abandoned. Relationships require patience, forgiveness, communication, and effort. But there is a difference between working through challenges and trying to force something that is constantly moving away from you. There is a difference between fighting for a healthy relationship and refusing to accept what Allah may be showing you. Sometimes Allah allows a relationship to end because your heart has become too attached to the creation instead of the Creator. Sometimes He removes a person because He knows they cannot accompany you to the next chapter of your life. Sometimes He closes a door because another door, one far better for your faith, your peace, and your future, is waiting to be opened. The difficult truth is that many people trust Allah when He gives them what they want, but struggle to trust Him when He takes something away. Yet, true tawakkul is trusting Allah in both situations. It is believing that the same Lord who gives is also wise when He withholds. The same Lord who opens doors is also merciful when He closes them. A relationship ending does not always mean your dua failed. Sometimes it means your dua was answered in a way you cannot understand yet. Sometimes Allah is saving you from a future that would have broken your heart even more. And sometimes He is teaching you that your peace was never meant to depend on one person. It was meant to depend on Him. The believer's strength is not found in getting everything they ask for. Their strength is found in trusting Allah, even when life unfolds differently than they expected. Because one day, whether in this life or the next, every believer will discover that Allah's plan was always wiser than their own. And once you understand that, you become ready to recognize the attachment that causes so many people to ignore warning signs they should never have ignored in the first place. 3. The attachment that makes you ignore every warning sign. My beloved brother and sister, one of the greatest dangers in a relationship is not rejection, distance, or even heartbreak. The greatest danger is becoming so emotionally attached to someone that you can no longer see reality clearly. When attachment takes control of the heart, people begin ignoring signs that would normally be obvious. They overlook disrespect, excuse bad behavior, and continue holding on to someone who is showing them, again and again, that the relationship is not healthy. At the beginning, the warning signs are usually small. A person becomes inconsistent. Their effort starts fading. Their words no longer match their actions. They make promises they never keep. They disappear when you need them most, but expect you to always be available when they need you. Deep down, you notice these things, but because your heart is attached, you keep finding excuses for them. You tell yourself they are busy, stressed, confused, or simply going through a difficult time. The problem is that attachment often makes people fall in love with potential instead of reality. They stop looking at who the person actually is and start focusing on who they hope the person will become. They convince themselves that one day everything will change, one day the effort will return, one day the commitment will become stronger, one day the relationship will finally become what they have always dreamed of. But while they are waiting for that future version of the person, they continue suffering in the present. This is why emotional attachment can be so dangerous. It blinds the heart. It makes people accept treatment they would never advise their own friends or family to accept. If someone else described the exact same relationship, they would immediately recognize the warning signs. Yet when it comes to their own situation, their feelings become stronger than their judgment. Allah gave us hearts to love, but He also gave us minds to reflect. A believer is not supposed to ignore reality in the name of love. True love should bring you closer to peace, closer to dignity, and closer to Allah. If a relationship constantly fills your heart with anxiety, confusion, insecurity, and emotional exhaustion, then it is important to pause and ask yourself whether you are seeing the relationship clearly or through the lens of attachment. Many people remain trapped in unhealthy relationships because they fear loss more than they value peace. They know something is wrong, but they are terrified of letting go. They fear being alone. They fear starting over. They fear that they may never find someone else. So instead of facing temporary pain, they choose to remain in a situation that slowly hurts them day after day. What makes this even more difficult is that attachment often disguises itself as loyalty. People say, "I'm just being patient," when in reality they are ignoring serious problems. They say, "I don't want to give up," when in reality they are refusing to accept what is happening right in front of them. Patience is a beautiful quality, but patience does not mean pretending that unhealthy behavior is acceptable. Patience does not mean sacrificing your self-respect while hoping someone eventually changes. Sometimes Allah allows warning signs to appear repeatedly because He is trying to wake us up before greater pain arrives. The signs are not there to punish us, they are there to guide us. But when attachment becomes stronger than wisdom, people continue walking toward a door that Allah may already be showing them is not meant for them. The truth is that not every relationship survives, and not every person who enters your life is meant to stay forever. The sooner you accept reality, the sooner healing can begin. Because healing does not start when the other person changes. Healing starts when you finally stop ignoring what Allah has been showing you all along. And once you begin seeing clearly, you will understand why chasing someone rarely brings them closer. In fact, it often does the exact opposite. That brings us to the next lesson. 4. How desperation for love pushes people further away. My beloved brother and sister, one of the most painful truths about relationships is that the more desperate a person becomes for love, the more likely they are to lose their peace. When someone fears losing a relationship, they often begin doing things they never imagined they would do. They send messages that go unanswered. They constantly seek reassurance. They overthink every conversation. They become emotionally exhausted, trying to keep someone interested who is already pulling away. What starts as love slowly turns into fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being replaced, fear of being alone. And once fear takes control of the heart, a person stops acting from confidence and starts acting from desperation. Instead of enjoying the relationship, they spend their days worrying about it. Instead of feeling secure, they feel anxious. Instead of trusting Allah, they become consumed by the need to control the outcome. The problem with desperation is that it places an unhealthy burden on both people. The person who is chasing becomes exhausted, while the person being chased often feels pressured. Every conversation becomes heavy, every disagreement becomes a crisis, every small change in behavior becomes a reason for panic. The relationship begins to revolve around fear rather than affection. This is why wise people understand that love cannot grow in an atmosphere of desperation. Real love grows where there is trust, respect, and emotional balance. It grows when two people choose each other freely, not when one person is constantly trying to convince the other to stay. Allah teaches us to place our trust in Him, not in people. When your heart becomes completely dependent on another human being, every action they take has the power to disturb your peace. A delayed reply ruins your day. A cold response keeps you awake at night. A moment of distance feels like the end of the world. This is not because the person has become so powerful. It is because your attachment has become too strong. Many people believe that if they try harder, love will return. They think that if they sacrifice more, give more, and tolerate more, the relationship will finally become what they want it to be. But genuine love does not need to be forced. The person who truly values you will not require you to constantly prove your worth. They will appreciate your presence without needing to be chased. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop running after someone and leave the matter with Allah. Not because you do not care, but because you understand that hearts are in the hands of Allah. If a relationship is meant to flourish, Allah can strengthen it. If it is not meant to continue, no amount of chasing will change what Allah has written. The difficult reality is that desperation often keeps people trapped in relationships that are already fading. They spend so much energy trying to hold on that they forget to ask whether holding on is even helping. They become so focused on keeping the person that they lose sight of their own emotional well-being, their self-respect, and sometimes even their connection with Allah. A believer must remember that love should never require you to abandon your dignity. You can care deeply for someone while still trusting Allah with the outcome. You can make dua, put in effort, and fight for what is good without turning another person into the center of your entire world. Because sometimes the very thing that saves your heart is not chasing harder. Sometimes it is stepping back, trusting Allah, and accepting that what is meant for you will never need to be forced. And once you learn that, you become ready to see the hidden mercy that Allah places inside certain goodbyes. 5. The hidden mercy Allah places inside certain breakups. My beloved brother and sister, when a relationship ends, most people immediately focus on what they lost. They think about the memories, the plans, the conversations, and the future they imagined with that person. The pain feels overwhelming because the heart naturally mourns what it hoped would remain. But what many people fail to realize is that sometimes Allah's mercy arrives in a form that does not look like mercy at all. There are blessings that come through addition, and there are blessings that come through removal. We easily recognize the blessings that are added to our lives, but we often struggle to recognize the blessings that Allah removes from our lives for our own protection. Sometimes the very person you are crying over today is someone Allah knows would have brought you greater pain tomorrow. Sometimes the relationship you are desperately trying to save is the relationship Allah is mercifully rescuing you from. Allah says in the Quran that perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you, and Allah knows while you know not. Quran 2:21-16. This verse becomes especially powerful during heartbreak, because when emotions are strong, people judge situations based on feelings rather than wisdom. They assume that if losing someone hurts, then losing them must be bad. But pain and harm are not always the same thing. A surgery can be painful yet necessary. A medicine can taste bitter yet heal the body. In the same way, a breakup can hurt the heart while still protecting the future. Many people spend months asking Allah why a relationship ended. Years later, they finally understand. They discover things they never knew. They see character traits they once ignored. They recognize warning signs they were too attached to notice. They meet people who treat them with more respect and sincerity. And suddenly, the breakup that once felt like a tragedy begins to look like a blessing. The problem is that most people want Allah's wisdom to be explained immediately. They want every hardship to make sense right away. But Allah does not always reveal His wisdom in the moment. Sometimes understanding comes much later. The believer's job is not to know every reason. The believer's job is to trust that Allah has a reason. This does not mean you should never feel sad. Even the strongest believers experience heartbreak. Missing someone does not mean your faith is weak. Crying does not mean you lack trust in Allah. What matters is what you do with that pain. Do you allow it to bring you closer to Allah? or do you allow it to pull you away from Him? One of the greatest mistakes people make after a breakup is constantly looking backward. They replay old conversations. They imagine different outcomes. They wonder what would have happened if they had said something different or done something differently. But while they are busy living in the past, they cannot see the future Allah is preparing for them. Sometimes Allah removes a person because they were becoming too important in your heart. Sometimes He removes a relationship because He wants you to find your peace in Him first. And sometimes He removes someone because the spouse, the marriage, or the future He has written for you requires a different path than the one you were trying so hard to follow. The hidden mercy of Allah is often invisible during the storm. It becomes clear only after the storm has passed. One day you may look back at the relationship that broke your heart and thank Allah for not allowing it to continue. You may realize that what felt like rejection was actually protection, what felt like loss was actually guidance, and what felt like the end was actually the beginning of something far better. And once you begin seeing Allah's mercy in what He removes, you become ready to understand why wise Muslim men and women know when it is time to walk away quietly. 6. Why wise Muslim men and women walk away quietly. My beloved brother and sister, one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity is knowing when to stop fighting a battle that no longer needs to be fought. Wise Muslim men and women do not walk away because they stopped caring. They walk away because they finally understand that not every relationship can be saved by effort alone. No matter how much love you give, no matter how many chances you offer, and no matter how many tears you shed, you cannot force another person's heart to feel what it does not feel. Many people think walking away is a sign of weakness. They believe that if they truly loved someone, they should keep chasing forever. They should keep explaining, keep convincing, keep sacrificing, and keep waiting. But there comes a moment when continuing to chase no longer shows love. It shows an unwillingness to accept reality. Wise people understand that relationships require two willing hearts. One person cannot build a future alone. One person cannot carry all the effort forever. One person cannot keep repairing what the other keeps breaking. Eventually, there comes a point where the healthiest decision is not to chase harder, but to step back with dignity and place the matter in Allah's hands. This does not mean they leave with hatred in their hearts. They do not spend their days seeking revenge or hoping the other person suffers. They do not fill social media with indirect messages or constantly try to prove what was lost. Instead, they walk away quietly because they understand that peace is more valuable than endless conflict. Allah says in the Quran, "And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him." Quran 65 verse 3. This verse teaches a powerful lesson. When your trust is in Allah, you no longer feel the need to force people to stay in your life. You no longer believe that your future depends on one specific person. You understand that if Allah has written something for you, no one can take it away. And if Allah has not written it for you, no amount of chasing will bring it to you. The strongest people are often the ones who leave without making a scene. They leave without begging. They leave without humiliating themselves. They leave without abandoning their self-respect. They accept the pain, they make dua, and they trust that Allah's wisdom is greater than their understanding. Many hearts remain trapped because they keep waiting for closure from another person. They think healing can only begin after receiving the perfect explanation, the perfect apology, or the perfect conversation. But wise believers understand that closure does not always come from people. Sometimes closure comes from accepting Allah's decree and moving forward. There is a unique kind of strength in walking away from what is hurting you, while still wishing the other person well. There is a unique kind of faith in releasing someone without knowing what the future holds. And there is a unique kind of peace that enters the heart when you finally stop trying to control what Allah has already decided. The truth is that wise Muslim men and women do not walk away because they have no feelings. They walk away because they refuse to let their feelings become more important than their faith, their dignity, and their trust in Allah. They understand that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones left unsaid, and sometimes the strongest action is quietly stepping back and letting Allah take control. And when a person reaches that level of trust, something beautiful begins to happen. Their focus shifts from what they lost to what Allah may still have waiting for them. That is why the final lesson is perhaps the most important of all. When you release what is gone, Allah makes room for what is better. 7. The person Allah has written for you will not need to be chased. My beloved brother and sister, after all the heartbreak, confusion, waiting, and emotional struggle, there is one truth every believer must eventually learn. The person Allah has truly written for you will not require you to spend your life chasing them. This does not mean relationships are effortless. Every marriage requires patience, sacrifice, communication, and commitment. But there is a difference between working together to build a relationship and constantly running after someone who keeps moving away from you. Many people spend years exhausting themselves because they believe that if they just try a little harder, love will finally become secure. They keep waiting for the other person to change. They keep hoping for a different outcome. They keep holding on to a future that exists only in their imagination. Meanwhile, their heart remains trapped between disappointment and false hope. The reality is that what Allah has written for you cannot be stolen by another person, delayed by another person, or destroyed by another person. If Allah has decreed that someone will be part of your future, no force on earth can permanently remove what Allah has written. And if Allah has not written that person for you, then no amount of chasing, begging, convincing, or sacrificing will change the decree of Allah. This is why trusting Allah brings so much peace. The moment you truly believe that your future is in Allah's hands, you stop living in constant fear. You stop worrying that one wrong message, one disagreement, or one difficult season will cause you to lose what Allah intended for you. You begin understanding that your life is not controlled by people. It is controlled by the Lord of the heavens and the earth. Allah says, "And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out and provide for him from where he does not expect." Quran 65, 2-3. Notice that Allah does not say the way out will come from where you expect. Sometimes the blessing arrives from a direction you never imagined. Sometimes the person you were crying over was distracting you from a far better future. Sometimes the relationship that ended was creating space for a relationship that is healthier, more sincere, and more pleasing to Allah. Many people look back years later and realize that the person they once begged Allah to keep was never the person they truly needed. At the time, they could not understand it. Their emotions were too strong. Their attachment was too deep. But once time passed and Allah revealed more of His plan, they saw the wisdom they were unable to see before. One of Shaitan's favorite tricks is convincing people that losing one person means losing their chance at happiness. He whispers that no one else will come. He whispers that this was their only opportunity for love. He whispers that they will never recover. But Allah is the creator of hearts. The one who created love is fully capable of replacing pain with peace, loss with wisdom, and disappointment with something better. The believer's journey is not about chasing people. It is about chasing the pleasure of Allah. When your relationship with Allah becomes stronger, you stop treating people as if they control your destiny. You appreciate them, care for them, and love them, but you never place them above the one who created them. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes Allah removes someone from your life not because He wants to leave you empty-handed, but because He wants your hands free to receive something better. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a redirection. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually protection. And sometimes what feels like loss is simply Allah guiding you toward a future that your heart cannot see yet. So if someone has walked away, if a relationship has ended, or if a door has closed despite all your efforts, do not spend your life chasing what Allah is taking away. Trust Him, be patient, continue making dua, continue improving yourself, continue moving forward. Because the person Allah has truly written for you will not require you to lose your dignity, sacrifice your peace, or abandon your faith just to keep them in your life. What Allah has written for you will reach you at the right time, in the right way, and with the right blessing. And when that day comes, you will understand why Allah asked you to let go of what was never meant to stay. My beloved brother and sister, if there is one lesson to take away from today's reminder, let it be this. Stop exhausting your heart chasing people when your heart was created to chase Allah. Some of us spend years running after relationships, begging for attention, fighting for love, and trying to hold on to people who have already decided to let go. We convince ourselves that if we just try harder, sacrifice more, or wait longer, everything will finally work out. But sometimes the greatest act of faith is not holding on. Sometimes it is letting go. Remember, not every person who leaves your life is a punishment from Allah. Sometimes they are Allah's protection, sometimes they are Allah's redirection, and sometimes they are Allah's way of making room for a blessing you cannot yet see. The pain may be real, the tears may be real, and the heartbreak may be real, but Allah's wisdom is also real. Never allow a temporary loss to make you doubt the one who controls your future. The people meant for your life will not require you to abandon your dignity to keep them. The spouse Allah has written for you will not require you to beg for basic respect. The love that is good for you will bring you closer to Allah, not further away from Him. So stop measuring your worth by who stayed and who left. Your value was never created by another person's choice. Your value comes from Allah. The one who created you knows you and loves you more than anyone ever could. As you leave this video today, I want you to release one burden from your heart. Release the burden of trying to control what Allah has already decided. Release the burden of constantly asking why someone left. Release the burden of believing that your happiness depends on one specific person. Trust Allah with what you cannot understand. Trust Allah with what you cannot fix. Trust Allah with what you cannot keep. One day you may look back at the relationship that broke your heart and thank Allah for not allowing it to continue. One day the door that closed may make sense. One day the tears you cried may become proof of how far Allah brought you. And on that day you will realize that Allah was not taking something good away from you. He was guiding you towards something better. If this reminder touched your heart, write "I trust Allah's plan" in the comments below. And before you leave, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another reminder that could bring peace to your heart. May Allah heal every broken heart, remove every unhealthy attachment, bless every righteous marriage, guide every believer searching for love, and grant us hearts that are attached to Him above all else. Until next time, remember, when Allah closes one door, it is never the end of your story. It is often the beginning of a better one.